So deep packet inspection for encryption. So this is formally known as SSL inspection or SSL DPI, deep packet inspection. And it can be utilized as a covert channel. A covert channel is a method of used to defeat multi-level security solutions to leak data. So that's a test question. A covert channel is a method used to defeat multi-level security solutions to leak data. Transfers information over within a computer system or a network that is outside of the security policy. So that's what a covert channel is by definition. Transfers information over or within a computer system or network that is outside of the security policy. It doesn't mean it's hidden, it just means it's not addressed by the security policy. So deep packet inspection over TLS or SSL is basically cracking open the SSL and inspecting all the traffic inside in its plain text form. You're looking for data loss prevention, you're going to run it through tools like that. It doesn't mean that people are necessarily, especially in the case of corporate environments, necessarily spying on you or looking at your data or checking to see if you're looking for another job, although they do these things. Blue Coat has some tools that do that as well. You can look for keywords in that traffic, and the Blue Coat appliance will actually pull out that section and log it for you, or key you into that section of the log of what to look for. So if you're looking for jobs, then they'll know that you're fixing to quit or something like that. It can kind of give away some things, but characteristically you'll look for things like bad signatures, just like you would in the unencrypted traffic. You look for the same things, right? So that's kind of how it works. And also you want to collect the DNS information out of there and see who's talking to who and what's talking to what. And you can also bang those against your white and black lists. SOAP is a simple object access protocol. It's a messaging protocol that allows programs to run on disparate operating systems such as Windows and Linux, or in this case of today's world, an Internet of Things, right? So you might have a Windows computer talking to a thermostat, or to communicate using hypertext transfer protocol, and it's an extensible markup language. So there's a lot of flexibility in SOAP messaging. So you can have universal communication through SOAP. There's many of these. So there's SOAP and XML, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a messaging protocol that allows programs to run on disparate operating systems. So you will see this on the test, and it will be related to XML in some fashion. The question. So now we're going to discuss telephone knowledge. So for the CEH and in real life, you need to know about this. So there's some terms that they're going to throw around and things you need to be aware of. So first of all, if you're messing around with these old phone blocks, the 66 blocks and 110 blocks they call them, if you go around touching those with your finger, people like to run their fingers down them. But if the phone rings, it's enough voltage to give you a little bit of a bite. So in the case of high-speed DSL circuits, which are around today, like a T1 for example, the bigger ones now, they have T3s, but some of the bigger ones are going to be on optical cables. Pretty soon, probably in some areas in the Northeast, they're already, even the small phones are on optical cables. So you may run into problems where everything's going optical and this information will become obsolete, but you'll see it somewhere. So just be aware, if they have a high-speed DSL circuit, those will pop you pretty good. So don't go rubbing your fingers down those 66 blocks and they're not covered like outlets are protected. So just keep that in mind that you can get a bite from those. You can check it with a voltage detector before you go poking around in there. And if the phone rings while you're touching the wires, it'll bite you too, but it's only 54 volts. So it's not enough to kill you, it's just ouch. It's not even going to burn your hand. So let's go through the terminology related here. POTS, plain old telephone service. It's a basic wireline telecommunication connection. It's what you think of as a phone line at home. You have the 4 wires in the little box on the outside of your house. Only 2 of them are required per line. Every house is usually wired for 2 phone lines. So usually you'll see 2 wires in use. There's a tip and a ring. PBX is a private branch exchange. It switches calls between enterprise users on local lines while allowing others to share the certain number of external phone lines. Okay, so basically that's just natting. A PBX nats your phone lines to the inside. So everyone can share those same phone lines or rolls them over to another line. That whole thing, that's where the PBX comes into play. So Asterisk is a software implementation of a PBX public switch telephone network. It's the world's collection of interconnected PSTN. I'm sorry, this is a different term. So Asterisk is a software implementation of a PBX. It's a very popular one. It's free. It runs off of CentOS, the best. It's what it's designed to run on. You can get it to run on anything else. There's hardware you can get for it, so you can have trunk lines come into the back of your computer, and you can run your own PBX through Asterisk. You can have like line transfers and all that kind of stuff. You can also get these. You hear them advertised on like TV and stuff, the Grasshopper systems. Those are Asterisk implementations. So another term is a PSTN, a public switched telephone network. It's the world's collection of interconnected, voice-oriented public telephone networks with both commercial and government-owned, also referred to as POTS. However, the PSTN is the old copper-based. Now most everything is VoIP and backhauled over VoIP. So even though you have copper from your house out to the street, it's picked up and gone to optical cables, which is VoIP, or voice over IP. So everything is changed now to IP. All the communication is over IP. So they don't want to support that hardware for the copper wiring anymore. So even though you have a DSL that comes out to your house, as soon as it hits that red brick building about a mile or two away, then it's turned back into optical in some fashion. So then you have voice over IP, or VoIP. It allows calls to be completed using broadband instead of the PSTN. So 100% of calls today are turned into a VoIP at the switch, which is that red brick building out by the street about a mile or two from your house. Sometimes it can be up to 3 miles. It just depends on the technology they've employed. Okay, policies as it relates to the test. So there's an acceptable use policy, or an AUP. It's a set of rules that describe the ways in which the network, site, or system may be used to set guides as to how it should be used, how the company is saying that you're allowed to use this gear. You may be allowed to use it however you want. Most of them are pretty free range. Some of them are so strict that you can't do anything outside of business use. No looking at Facebook, no looking at jobs, anything. Remote access policies, a document which outlines and defines acceptable methods of remotely connecting to the internal network. So you have dial-in, SLIP, PPP, serial line IP is SLIP, point-to-point protocol is the PPP, and the ISDN lines. Integrated Subscriber Digital Network is what that stands for. Those are kind of really old school nowadays. ISDN is 56K modems. We're just a little bit slower than an ISDN, and some of them properly configured could be faster than ISDN. There's about 64 megabits per second. So depending on some of the copper lines you had, the throughput might even be faster. It depends on how you had them connected as well. Nobody really uses them today. Although HDSN, high-speed digital, HSDN, high-speed digital subscriber networks are what T1s and T2s, T3s run over. So you'll see a little card in the switch room and that kind of thing as part of the PBX. But again, by the time it gets out to the street, it's all turned back into copper. Permissive policy is a policy in which the majority of internet traffic is accepted versus restrictive policy. So you have a permissive policy, which means you're only looking for very specific things and denying that, not everything else. So this policy is more like for a router, a switch, or a computer, not so much for regulating people, like the acceptable use and the remote access. CM refers to configuration management, and it ensures that the policies are made in a controlled and documented fashion. So we have versions of them. We can see what changed from version to version. We can glean what the company's thinking, how good their security is, how good their security isn't, this kind of thing. So you don't necessarily want to publicly produce these documents and make them readily available for general public consumption. Only the people that need to consume them should receive them. They can be considered an information leak. Employers protect assets with security policies pertaining to employee surveillance activities by providing clear boundaries of monitoring activities and consequences. So make sure you inform.